Hey there, I'm Colin Wright, and I'm going to answer some of your questions. First question today. I want to be multidisciplinary, but I have no idea where to start. What should I keep in mind when getting started in a new field? Well, first and foremost, multidisciplinary means having more than one specialty, and so rather than just being a web developer, you might also design and play music and weave baskets and be involved with ceramics and be a geologist. It's having a lot of different disciplines, multidisciplinary. And it's something that I enjoy, being a multidisciplinarian. It's something that I find a lot of value in, and I try to encourage other people to do this as well, because being multidisciplinary tends to augment, tends to empower, and add an extra dimension to everything that you do specialize in. That said, a couple good places to start, things to be thinking about when you're aspiring to be multidisciplinary, and if you want to look at yourself that way and build your life in that way. The first would be to read and watch and consume and just take in information in any way possible and do it broadly. So rather than fixating on one type of music, one type of book, one type of TV program or movie, you read everything, you listen to everything, you watch everything, and you very intentionally add these things to your life. Anytime you find yourself listening to the same band over and over, try to add somebody new. Try to do it from a genre that you're unfamiliar with. This doesn't mean that you can't have favorites, and it doesn't mean that you can't return to these things, but I very often find that I appreciate a band that I love even more in the context of music as a whole. And the same is true with anything else that you enjoy, anything else that you study. So very intentionally putting yourself out there to try things, to taste test things is important. You're not going to enjoy everything, but you might understand a whole lot more things as a result of that practice and that habit. Say also give yourself a lot of goals and deadlines. When you discover a new skill or a new practice or a new field that you know nothing about, figure out some deadlines that you can set for yourself. I'm going to finish this book by this day, or I'm going to learn to cook this thing by this day, I'm going to figure out what camera to buy by this day. And set those things and try to live up to them. And that keeps you moving at a pretty steady clip, and it also gives you a lot of celebratory milestones. Points where you can take stock and say, here's what I've learned, here's what I've accomplished. And it gives you the kind of that thrill of accomplishment, but it also gives you then your next jumping off point. I just finished this, now what do I do next? Rather than it being this kind of nebulous blob that just, you can't figure out which direction to go, you can't really pinpoint what you've accomplished yet. This gives you a lot of different steps. Even though you don't know exactly which direction you're going in and where you'll end up, it allows you to look back and see what you've accomplished while getting that thrill of accomplishment very regularly. And then something that's a little bit difficult for some people, I think, is try not to replace skill and knowledge with merchandise. That is, try not to skip steps by buying something. I see this happen a whole lot where people get very enthusiastic about something. Just for example, photography. And you say, I'm going to learn photography and it's going to be wonderful. And then they don't know too much yet, but they're really enthusiastic. And so they go out and buy like a $5,000 camera. And that's cool. I mean, it's a really great camera. No doubt it will help. A lot of great photography is taken with wonderful cameras by relatively unskilled photographers. But I would argue that in a lot of cases, a better way to learn would be to start out with something simpler so that then you grow with your equipment. And once you get to the point where you know more, then you get the camera that lives up to you rather than you struggling to live up to your equipment. And one thing that's beneficial about this method is that you don't spend money on something that you may not end up enjoying. It may be that you learn enough about photography to realize that you don't really care, or that you can do it with your phone instead. Like the level of photography that you want to get into is something that you can do with much simpler equipment. And now you've spent $5,000 on this thing that you'll use once a year maybe. So it prevents that from happening. But it also means that by the time you spend that money, you will know enough to spend it better. The type of camera that an amateur photographer would buy may not be the type of camera that a pro-level photographer who knows what they're doing would buy. And so it may be that that $5,000 could be better spent on something else, but you don't know it yet. And so a much better method, and this is something that I do because I get involved in so many different practices and industries and professions, I go for the prosumer level of whatever it is that I'm buying most typically. And what that means is that you don't buy the cheapest thing available, because usually that's like a toy version of whatever you're getting and not a good representation of what you'll actually be using. It's not a real tool to use. And so that might hold you back in some way because it doesn't have all the features that you need. But a prosumer level is not like super professional. It's not the $5,000 camera. It's like the $500 camera. So it's something that's good. You've invested some money in this, and that incentivizes you to a certain degree to learn something about it. And it's got some features, it's well built, it's just not top of the line. And this allows you to be invested in it. It allows you to have the bells and whistles that you need. It'll be something that's above average quality, but it doesn't commit you into something that you may not actually want to be committed to. And it's something that I have found is usually really easy to resell too if you end up not wanting it after you've learned a whole lot about photography, you decide it's not for you. A prosumer camera is easier to unload to somebody else who wants to try it out, because the market for $5,000 cameras is much smaller than the market for $500 cameras secondhand. So I'd say give those things a shot. Becoming multidisciplinary is a very good goal, so I wish you the best. Hopefully that helps. Second question today. I can't decide how many of my opinions about larger issues I should talk about publicly. I worry that it will keep me from getting clients. How do you decide? This is a very good question, and something that a lot of us have to deal with. More of us have to deal with this, I think, today than ever before in history, because all of us, to some degree or another, are public figures because of social media and these other tools that we have access to today. And so it's more likely that your personal opinions will impact your professional life than ever before. There's a decent chance that something that you say on Twitter that you don't think will reflect at all on your professional life will at some point come back to haunt you if it's something really douchebaggy. So it's important to consider this and balance these things out. Something that I would say, because the answer to this question will be different for everybody depending on your industry and your beliefs and the people that you want to have around you. But I would say imagine into the future and think, who do I want to work with? But also think, what do I believe in, but that I can bend on? This might be, for example, if you're an atheist, like me, but you think that all religions are fine, people can believe whatever they want. That is a position then that's much easier to speak about than something, for example, like saying that you're a militant atheist and that, people who believe this all need to die, or people who believe this are all incorrect. Considering one, the types of people that you want in your life, and then two, the types of things that you can speak about and be malleable about, and not be diehard and fanatic about, and not be dogmatic about. I would say allow those things to help you decide what you speak about publicly. Because at the end of the day, if you are speaking out against racism, for example, and you're worried that taking that position against racism will deter some people from working with you, ask yourself if that matters. Like, are those people that you want to work with anyway? People who are like hardcore racists? Do you want those people in your life? If they're giving you money, would you take it? Like, is that something that's really important to you? And if so, use that to help guide what you speak about. But if not, allow that to help guide you as well. Because the more things that you can be flexible on, I would say happier typically you'll probably be in life in general, but also the more you can speak about, because you can be convinced and you can also speak with people who disagree with you without getting into some kind of fight. So that allows you a lot more leeway. Whereas if there's anything that's hard set, like I don't want to work with racists or homophobes or sexists or whatever, those are things that you can speak out about more concretely and say, I have a really specific opinion about this. If that offends you, sorry, and then be proud of it and draw that line in the sand and say, this is something that is a firmly held belief and that applies to my work as well. And be proud about that and live it. Essentially what it comes down to is recognizing that your professional life is part of your life. And anything you do here will reflect upon here and vice versa. So allow that recognition to guide what you speak about in your life. Thanks so much for watching. If you have a question you'd like me to answer in a future video, feel free to ask it in the comment section below. You can find out more about me and my work at colin.io. My blog is at excelelifestyle.com. My podcast is at letsknowthings.com. And you can find me pretty much everywhere from Instagram to Snapchat to Vine and Twitter at Colin is my name.